Everybody. Welcome to the Community Development Commission meeting for June 21st, 2021. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Damasco?
Present.
Mr. Ochoa?
Present.
Mr. Peterson is absent. Mr. Shemanek?
Here.
Ms. Zatko? Here. Mr. Woods?
Here.
And our new member, Mr.
Babowis.
Babowis.
Here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so as you all know, we have been operating without a chairman. We do anticipate that the mayor will choose a chairman in the near future. But until he does, what we've been doing is I've been serving as a meeting facilitator, but we always need to make a motion to have a chairman pro tem appointed. So I would entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Jamie Ochoa as our chairman pro tem.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Babowis?
Approve.
Mr. Damasco?
Approve.
Mr. Ochoa?
Aye.
Mr. Shemanek?
Yes.
Ms. Zatko?
Yes.
And Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. I'll cede the floor to you, Mr. Ochoa.
Mr. Conway, as Chairman Pro Tem, I request that you serve as the meeting facilitator, please.
Absolutely. Okay, let's start with our first business item tonight. It's approval of the meeting minutes from our CDC meeting dated May 17th, 2021. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Sorry. Mr. Babowis?
Abstain as I was not a member.
Mr. Damasco?
Present.
Mr. Ochoa?
Aye.
Mr. Shemanek?
Yes.
Ms. Zatko?
Yes.
And Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes and meeting minutes are approved. Okay, we are going to, we're going to head into our public hearings for the night. Yes?
And I apologize, we actually just, one of the staff member came up. There is a car in our parking lot that the alarm keeps going off. It's a silver coupe. I just wanted to ask if maybe perhaps it's anyone in here. We don't want the battery to run out during our meeting, so this is more of like an announcement if it could be anyone's car
What
in
was
there.
the car?
Silver coupe is what I was told.
I got a silver Mercedes out there.
I don't know, yeah,
Tudor.
Might be,
it may be.
might be.
Might be mine.
You wanna go check?
Take a quick look.
Yeah.
We'll just recess briefly and let
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Damasco check.
Really good insulation in here because we can't hear anything.
Everyone had a good weekend?
All weekends are good.
Big steak, ribeye, T-bone, tomahawk? Kids doing soccer, right?
Yeah, my girl's doing soccer.
Yeah, same here. Soccer for
Okay, I think we're ready to go. Are we good, Ron? Okay. All right, perfect. I just want to make some prefatory remarks before we get into tonight's hearings. These are what are called zoning board hearings. This is the opportunity for the applicants to make their case as to why they should be granted zoning relief that they're requesting. All testimony that's given tonight is given under oath. So if you're the applicant providing testimony, or if you're a member of the public that wants to provide testimony, you'll be put under oath, and we'd ask that you come up to the podium over here and provide your remarks. For each case, the staff will give a general overview of the case. They'll make a recommendation as to whether they think the particular zoning relief should be granted or not. It's just a recommendation. This body, the zoning board body, is also what's called a recommending body. So ultimately, this body will make a recommendation, and that recommendation will go to the city council for final action. So without further ado, let's start with our first case. This is CDC case number 2020-10. This is the requester is Celestina Salazar. The requester is requesting a fence variation to allow construction of a 6-foot-high privacy fence in the corner side yard. The subject property is located at 524 North Edgewood Avenue. Mr. Avila is the owner of the parcel, and Ms. Salazar is making the application on behalf of the owner. So I will now turn it over to staff to give us some background on the request and also to discuss notice.
Would you raise your right hand, state your name and address, please?
Gosha Pocheha, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you. So I will start our discussion. So as it was mentioned, the first petition in front of us is for a zoning variation to allow a 6-foot-high privacy fence in the corner side yard. So the subject property is in fact a corner lot. It is located at the corner of Foster Avenue and Edgewood. Over here we see there's a single-family residence. It's a 1.5-story frame residence. There's a detached garage behind it, and we also have an above-ground pool. The property is zoned R3 single family, and as you can see on the map, it is surrounded by mainly other similarly zoned R3 properties. However, properties directly to the north are zoned I1 light industrial. That's where our industrial district begins. This is a look at the existing condition. So we are looking west at the property. We're standing at Foster, looking across the street. Once again, you can see the primary residence over here. There is a driveway off of Edgewood over here that leads to a detached garage behind. And over here, you could notice that above ground pool that's sticking out a little bit closer past the house. This is another view looking southeast of the property. So now we are on Foster across the street and we're looking southeast. Once again, this is the house right there, the detached garage, and we have the above ground pool. What I also wanted to note is on the next slide, we'll look at the Platter survey. The Platter survey indicates roughly that the corner of the property is probably around where this tree is located. This driveway belongs to the property next door, but I did want to note that there's existing evergreen landscaping that is already there. So the fence that is being proposed by the subject property will be placed next to the existing vegetation that's already there. This is a look at the petitioner's proposal. So ultimately their intent was to construct a 6-foot fence all the way around the property, and we had discussions with them that is not something that our code supports. Therefore they, after a couple modifications, have submitted this proposal. Anything that is in blue indicates a 4-foot-high decorative fence. Anything that is indicated in orange indicates a 6-foot-high privacy fence. The privacy fence, we have a couple photos later on in the presentation, ultimately would be a wooden fence, solid wooden fence, and the decorative fence would be wrought iron, some sort of a metal decorative fence. As you can see on this proposal, the petitioners are proposing to extend the 6-foot fence roughly towards the middle of the elevation that's facing Foster. So the actual front of the building, everything in blue here would be in just a 4-foot-high fence, which is code compliant. There are a couple gates that are being proposed. This is the existing driveway that we saw in one of the photographs. There would be a gate to access this detached garage. The petitioners are also proposing a gate along Foster. There is a separate permit that they have submitted to the city for construction of a driveway off of Foster. That is something that is currently still under review, has not been approved, mainly because the petitioners are increasing their lot coverage, and we need to receive a topographical survey prepared by an engineer to be able to see if there's going to be a negative impact on drainage and so on. Ultimately, because it's a corner lot, there isn't anything in our municipal code that would prohibit them from having this secondary driveway. There's limitations on having 2 driveways on the same frontage, but not on a multiple frontage like this one. I will also note that along Foster Avenue, there is an existing curb cut. So there's a potential that there used to be a driveway off of Foster that's no longer there. So that's why I just wanted to provide an explanation why the gate is there. This is an image that actually shows our current fence regulations. I know we've been talking about fences a lot lately, but just as a refresher, our municipal code allows 4-foot-high decorative fence anywhere on the lot. It can essentially be right on the property line or within few inches of the property line. We do usually recommend that the fence is installed at least few inches inside of the property line so that if there's posts or any decorative details, they don't encroach further than the property line itself. What is of note here is that there is no sidewalk along Foster, so also keep in mind that the fence itself will not be close to the street. This is the actual curb cut of this, the curb of the street itself. So there's always that parkway. In this case, it will be a little bit, the appearance of it will be a bit deeper because the sidewalk is not there along Foster. Just very quickly to look at the existing fence regulations, we've got the 4-foot-high decorative fence that is permitted anywhere in the front yard, and this side along Foster is considered the corner side yard. And then a 6-foot-high privacy fence would then be meant to enclose the backyard and the side yard. So anything in orange, so past the front face of the house along Edgewood, we could have a 6-foot-high fence, and essentially we could come back with a 6-foot-high fence that would align with the elevation of the house that's facing Foster. One of the problems that installation of this code compliant fence would create is that their existing above ground pool was constructed in early 2000. I want to say it's 2002. We do have a permit that was issued for it. However, obviously it's very clear here, the way the pool was installed, it is closer to the property line along Foster than the house itself. So obviously you cannot have the fence go right through the pool. So there would have to be some sort of an enclosure. The fence would have to stop, which kind of would not really serve the purpose of the privacy that the property owners are seeking. So this is, once again, just looking at the existing fence regulations. What we wanted to do is provide a bit of a sort of a modification of what we are recommending. So in the packet, you will see our proposed motion. We are proposing a couple conditions on this particular approval. Mainly, I wanted to kind of refresh your memory because maybe 2 years ago or so, we did have a text amendment for fences on corner lots. And what that particular fence amendment stated is that if we have a corner lot right next to a corner lot, those properties are permitted to enclose their backyards with a 6-foot-high privacy fence. So ultimately, we could have a 6-foot-high fence from the rear corner of the house all the way to the property line here and back. The issue that's a little bit different here is that the property next door over here is not a corner lot. It is just a regular lot. Therefore, that particular set of regulations do not apply to this house. However, for consistency reasons, and we want to try to bring this close to the current regulations as possible, staff is recommending that the 6-foot high fence does not go past this red line, which is essentially the rear face of the building itself. The petitioners wanted to bring it a little bit closer here to the corner, but we recommend that it stop right at the rear line. Once again, this is something that would be permitted in a regular back-to-back corner lot situation. This is just an image of what the petitioners have proposed for their solid fence. So this would be metal post with the wood slats. This is just an image of the ornamental fence that they are proposing for the front of the structure. And I did want to talk briefly about compliance with the comprehensive plan. The site is designated as single-family residential. We're not really modifying or changing that. The use will continue. And we do feel that this proposal to improve the property will align with at least one of the goals of the comprehensive plan as listed here. In terms of public comment, we did receive a phone call from one of the surrounding property owners, and they wanted to kind of raise the attention of the city to something that they've observed in the past, and mainly, as it was noted in the memo as well, they have observed that the property owners, essentially, the petitioners, don't always park in their driveway. They sometimes encroach into the front lawn, which is not an improved surface. So that's something that's been recognized. The property owners have since applied for the permit to actually extend their driveway. So that's something that they're working to bring into compliance. But the property owner, the person that was making a comment, they just wanted to bring it into the CDC's attention that once we have a fence all the way to the property, we're not going to be able to see if there's anything else out of compliance. I did want to clarify that obviously the front of the house, which is facing Edgewood, it will be a decorative type of fence. It will be 4 feet high. So if there is, in fact, anything that is not in compliance, it would be visible from the public right away. Anyway. And in terms of recommendation, staff is recommending that CDC recommend approval of the petition. However, we did want to mention those 2 conditions that I outlined earlier. So the first one is that the 6-foot high fence does not extend past the rear face of the house to be consistent with the regulations that we typically have for corner lots. And the second condition is we just wanted to mention it again and kind of emphasize the fact that the property must be maintained in code compliance. And that includes, but not limited to, parking vehicles only on improved surfaces. So this is just something we want to have on a record. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Gosha?
Yes. I could be wrong, Gosha, but I thought you couldn't have your fence be in front of your neighbor's house. And it looks to me on this that fence is going to be in front of the neighbor's house.
And that's why that's the reason for the variation. We don't have any specific language that says it may not be in front of your neighbor's house. The code actually states that it may not go past the principal structure on this lot. So the face of the building or the building line of this particular parcel. If it so happens that the property next door has a different setback, then that setback applies to the fence of that property.
Any other questions? Okay. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite the applicant, if the applicant is here tonight, to approach the podium, and if you have any remarks in support of your petition, this is your opportunity to do it. Okay. So if you just come up to the podium right over here.
Would you raise your right hand and state your name and address, please?
Celestina Salazar, 524 North Edgewood.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Okay, my name, as you hear, is Celestina Salazar. We moved to Wooddale a year and a half ago. I've been trying to have a fence since like almost a year. I don't know, Gosha explained very good, like, what we want. We have 4 kids, 2 are little, they are playing, we are find bottles, I don't know how to say, like, glass bottles. Some drivers are driving there faster, so they throw the beer bottles or things like that. So 4-foot fence does not work to pass like the bottles or things like that. Do you see we have a pool? I have a little girl. I know the neighbors are good neighbors, but it's a foster. You don't know who's driving there. So I don't want anybody to see, oh, little kids there outside playing, and they can just go in, because it's on the corner, it's no privacy, like everybody can go into your house and through there. So we are just want to take care of our kids, make sure they're playing outside and they are safe playing in our home. So that's why we very like to have a 6-foot fence. We are not make anything like make the house looks ugly, because it's our house. So everything we want to make, like, you told us do that, so we are gonna do whatever you told us to do, but we just really like to have a 6-foot fence on that side of the street, because Foster is 35 driving street, I think, or 30. So cars sometimes go a little faster than that. I don't want kids playing with the ball or things like that, and they might think it's easily to get there, go and pick up the ball or things like that. So 4-foot, still the ball can be out from or we have a trampoline there, things like that. I don't know, bad things can happen with little kids playing outside. And well, this is the major concern, because we want 6-foot fence there.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Salazar.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Salazar?
Ms. Salazar?
Yes.
What is the thought process with trying to take the 6-foot fence towards the middle of the house?
I don't know if you see, they always play tag, run around it, and I just think of the middle of the house, it's a good idea, because it's give a little more privacy to there, but just, I don't know, I didn't think about it, just put it on the middle of the house.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Salazar. Is there any member of the public that wishes to make any remarks on the applicant's request? No? Okay. So before I close the public hearing portion, what I'd like to remind folks, and this is actually for the benefit of our newest member, this is the opportunity to ask either staff questions or the applicant questions. Once I close the public hearing, then there's no more questions. That's the time where the members will deliberate the request and talk amongst one another. So if you have any more questions that you'd like to ask either staff or the applicant, now's the time to do it.
I have one question.
Yeah.
What is the ordinance? Is there an ordinance regarding the front enclosure of the property?
So the code allows a 4-foot high decorative fence anywhere on the property. So that includes the side, the actual front that's facing Edgewood, and also the corner side area that's facing Foster. So this graphic over here, anything in blue, would be permitted as a 4-foot high decorative fence.
Okay.
And that would be something we could just issue a permit for.
I have a question
Yeah.
on the number of, is there a number of vehicles that you own that are there?
3 vehicles and 2 trailers.
3?
3 vehicles, like 1 work vehicle, 2 for 1 little vehicle, and 2 family vehicles.
So 5.
Actually, yes, I don't know if the trailers count like as a vehicle, but yes.
Now, I think there was somewhere it was written about looking at those vehicles. Who does that? Is there an inspector that'll periodically review that, the area to see what's there?
So we do have a property maintenance division under our police department, so sometimes they are the ones that notice things that are out of compliance. Also, we do have complaints, so anyone could submit a complaint to the city, and they would be the department that follows up.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Okay, any more questions? All right, I will now close the public hearing portion, and we'll move on to the deliberation portion of our meeting on this request. Gosha has pointed out there is a motion in the packet, and I've said this before, but it bears repeating. Whenever we make motions to approve zoning relief, we always do it in the affirmative so that we can gather the proper vote count. Just because you make the motion does not mean you approve of the request. Just because you second the motion, again, that would not mean you approve of the request. You'll voice your view on it when we take the roll call. So we just do the motion process to get the motion on the floor and to have discussion. So the suggested motion in your packet, it's page 7 of 8. I will read it, and then one member can just say so moved, and we'll have a second. So the motion is, based on the submitted petition and the testimony presented, the proposed zoning variation is consistent with the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, and therefore I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of fact included within the staff memo dated June 21st, 2021, as the findings of the Community Development Commission, and recommend to the City Council approval of a zoning variation to allow for a 6-foot-high privacy fence in the corner side yard in case number CDC 2020-10 with the following conditions. Condition 1, the 6-foot-high privacy fence along the north elevation not to extend past the rear wall of the primary structure. Condition 2, the property be maintained in code compliance, including but not limited to parking of vehicles only on improved surfaces. Any member can say so moved.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion
Was
and
that
a
Ms.
second.
Thank you.
And now this is the time for discussion. So if you have any thoughts or views, now's the time to voice those thoughts or views before we vote.
I have a view.
Yes.
I know the area pretty well because I live near there, and there is a person living directly across the street who had all the same issues, has a big pool, and they had to go with the 4-foot privacy fence, and then they planted arborvitae bushes in front of it for their, to make it a little bit more secluded. I think is a much better way to go than they have a 6-foot fence that actually overlaps not just one house, but 2 houses, because it's on a corner. You're in front of 2 separate houses. I think it's kind of dangerous when we start passing all these fences like this, because everybody's gonna want it. I would be included in that group, to be honest with you. So, that's just my feeling on it.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Being that it's so busy on Foster though, in the industrial park, would a 4-foot really give as much privacy? I mean, because it is so busy in that area.
It is busy in that area, and no, it's not gonna give as much privacy at the moment, but if you grow bushes in front of that fence, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of what I did between me and my neighbor. I put arborvitaes, now they're 20, 30 feet high. So,
My view is, I think staff did a great recommendation here. And I think we should welcome your neighbor or that neighbor across the street to maybe follow suit.
are we willing to offer that to the neighbor across the street?
I can answer that because I don't have an
You
application.
could answer it.
I think if you start doing that, you're gonna have the whole
Exactly.
city going crazy. I mean, you
Exactly.
gotta stick to rules. That's my opinion.
Yes, but you also have variances for a reason. And I think that this case was presented very well to, I mean, you said it yourself, Dave, I mean, if this was your property, you would be having a motion to modify to get a variance passed.
Correct, but is it fair to my neighbor if I'm putting a fence in front of his house? Because he might not feel that that's the best look for his own home.
I think that's a great point, but his neighbor had an opportunity to come here and have a discussion with us. His neighbor didn't.
True.
So I can't speak for his neighbor.
Any other thoughts before we take a vote? Okay, so remember, because we put the motion in the affirmative, if you vote yes, you are voting to recommend approval of the request. If you vote no, you're recommending not to recommend approval of the request. Any questions on that before we proceed? Okay. Marilyn, can you please take the roll call?
Yes. Mr. Babowitz,
Yes,
Mr. Damasco,
No.
Mr. Ochoa,
Yes.
Mr. Shemanek,
Yes.
Ms. Zatko,
Yes.
and Mr. Woods.
No.
Okay.
Motion carries.
The motion carries. So this request will then proceed to the city's Planning and Zoning Committee. And Gosha, do you have the committee date for that?
Unfortunately, not
Not
yet.
yet.
This is
Okay.
something that typically gets set a little bit later, so we'll be in contact with the petitioners.
Great, thank you. Okay. Now moving on to our second case of the night. It is VAR 2021-0002. Mr. Turkin Ozturk is requesting a zoning variation to allow reduction of the required side setback for a detached garage. The subject property is located at 569 Gilbert Drive. Mr. Ozturk is the owner of the parcel. Gosha, can you give us some background on this request and also let us know about notice?
Once again, would you raise your right hand, state your name and address, please?
Gosha Pocheja, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you. The publication notice for, actually all of the cases for tonight's meeting were published in Daily Herald on June 4th, 2001. We also sent out notices to property owners within 300 feet of the subject property, and a sign was placed at each one of the properties, so including the one that is being considered right now. As it was noted, this is a zoning variation to allow reduction in the required side setback for a detached garage. This is a photograph, a location map of the subject property. The property includes a split-level brick home with a detached garage, and then there's a patio behind the house. This is a zoning map of the subject property. The property is zoned R3 single family. It is surrounded by similarly sized and developed properties, also zoned R3. There is a unincorporated parcel directly to the north. This is obviously the location of the power lines. This is a view of the existing conditions in the Plat survey, and really the main reason for the petition in front of us. To provide a little bit of a background, back towards the end of 2019, the subject property owners have submitted a building permit to the city to request replacement of their driveway and the garage slab. At the time, the garage was either in the middle of being demolished or was already demolished when they applied, with the intent that a new garage would be constructed. So the original permit that was submitted was for this driveway connecting to the garage and the garage slab. When the permit was issued, a couple conditions were added, which is very typical for any building permit. One of them was that a spot survey must be submitted once the concrete pad is poured for the garage. This is our standard practice whenever we have new foundations poured. We also had a condition that a separate permit must be submitted for the construction of the garage as well. And I want to say it was probably towards the middle of 2020 when the driveway was being constructed and the final inspections were taking place. I will note that the driveway itself consists of concrete, but there's also a section with permeable pavers. Because of the number of improvements on site, the lot was over on lot coverage, and our municipal code actually allows for use of permeable pavers, but they have to be approved and inspected by city engineers. So that was something that the property owners elected to do. So essentially a large portion of their driveway back there was constructed with permeable pavers. It was actually towards the maybe one of the last inspections that was done by our city engineer, where he took photographs and submitted to the city as part of the report, that we found out that the construction of the garage has already started. So we notified the property owners that a separate permit would be required. It took a little while to kind of get that going, but as we were closing out the permit for the driveway, so essentially keep in mind there's two separate permits here, the driveway and the garage slab. That's the one that required the spot survey. The spot survey finally was submitted in November of 2020, and that's when we discovered that the garage pad was poured few inches too close to the side property line. And what I did here is a copy of that spot survey with, I kind of just made it a little bit larger, that section of the garage itself. The dimensions that are highlighted are essentially 4.67 feet west of the property line, and this one is 4.81 west of the property line. So obviously we don't meet the 5-foot setback.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Just so I understand the sequence of timing.
Yes.
The footings, or the garage was poured, and the spot survey was done.
Mm-hmm.
The permit for the garage was provided before the spot survey was provided?
It was almost at the same time.
So the building department allowed the permit to go through?
Oh, so the permit was submitted. It had the
Okay.
permit for the garage has not been issued to date.
Okay.
I will note that we had a bit of a delay. The property owner was taken to adjudication because they were not willing to submit the permit right away. But the judge ordered them to submit the permit for the detached garage, and they had to pay a fee. So that's all described in the report. But ultimately, the reason for our meeting to date is to consider the fact that the garage slab was poured a few inches too close. I will note that, as you can see on the Platter survey, there is an existing fence, but it appears to be few inches away from the property line. So this darker line is essentially the property line. So most likely what happened in the field is the contractor didn't necessarily locate the property lines, but they went off. If you measure off the existing fence, it's more than 5 feet. So there could have been a misinterpretation when they measured it on site. Obviously, there was an existing garage slab in place that was demolished, and possibly maybe it wasn't done correctly. But that is the reason why we require as a standard the submittal of a spot survey before the permit is closed out, so we can ensure that this piece of concrete is poured correctly. Because if all you have on site is just a slab of concrete, obviously it would be time consuming, and there would be an additional cost, but you would have to remove a couple inches of concrete and you can still build your garage on it. Part of the issue that we have here is that the construction of the garage already started before the permit was even submitted, or obviously hasn't been issued yet. So the stop work order was placed and the garage has not been finished to date, but in order for us to proceed, we instructed the property owner that they would have to deconstruct the existing structure, which obviously would be expensive, or apply for the zoning variance. So there's a couple things, because the property owners did note the fact that they had a contractor working on this, so they were not fully aware of maybe all of the requirements, and they put the faith in the contractor, and I will let them to answer that by themselves. But ultimately, what we have in front of us right now is the property owners wanting to bring this into compliance. And the path that they've chosen is to seek the zoning variation because of ultimately the fact that they were not fully aware that this was not in compliance, and the fact that it would be a financial burden for them to deconstruct the garage and build it few inches away. I will also note that our current zoning ordinance, because if you really look at it, we're probably 4 to 6 inches away from meeting the code requirement. Our current zoning ordinance does not allow us any tolerances. Some other municipalities around may do that if it's within a certain percentage. If it's done differently on site, that would be allowed. Our code does not do that. So as staff, we are not able to approve the permit for the garage because we don't meet the 5-foot setback that's required on the side. I did want to include a photograph of this side. So as you can see, the fence is right here. So the appearance of it does look, close to it. Obviously, a couple inches, you're not going to be able to see it with eye. So that's why it's not, if it wasn't for that spotter survey, which obviously was required, we would not have discovered that this was a few inches off. I did want to point that, this is when the stop work order was placed towards the end of last year. None of the work has been completed, so that's why there's still work that needs to be done. But other than the fact that it doesn't meet the setback, the structure itself should be called compliant. The permit has not been issued yet, so obviously we have to complete our review. But in terms of lot coverage, in terms of height, this would be a code compliant structure. The maximum permitted height for detached garages is 17 feet. This one is a little bit over 16. I want to 16.2 or 16.4 inches. These are the drawings that were submitted by the petitioner, essentially just doing an overview. Of note is the fact that there is a second story to the garage, but it's only meant to be used for storage. It's not habitable space. There are no utilities being ran to it. In terms of compliance with the comprehensive plan, we always look at the designation of the property. So obviously this is single family, it's meant to remain single family. So all the property owners really intended to do was to provide improvements, improve a curb appeal of their property. So that meets the intent of the comprehensive plan. In terms of public comment, we did receive a couple. One of them was just really clarification, because obviously if you had a chance to visit, the structure is quite high, but this is something that we verified. It does meet the code requirements, as I mentioned earlier. So this was just a phone call. Somebody wanted to verify that the height was okay. The other one was actually an email we received, and I will redistribute it in a second. This was one of the property owners actually voiced support for the petition, and they asked the CDC Commission to approve it, mainly because they've been a resident in the area for quite some time. They even remember the original garage being constructed, and they do feel that this will be an improvement. It's not going to be something that will negatively impact the neighborhood. So I will just take a second to redistribute this email.
Thank you, Gosha.
And Marilyn, just let the record reflect that Ms. Pocheja has distributed a email from a Joyce Spakowski that was submitted on Wednesday, June 16th, 2021, concerning this case, VAR 2021-0002, and it serves as a comment on the petitioner's request.
Thank you. I will.
And lastly, for the recommendation, we do believe that there are specific hardships or unique situations that are related to this. And we do recommend approval because ultimately it does fit in within the comprehensive plan and with the intent of the comprehensive plan and with the UDO. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Bocheja?
Yes. I guess I'm just trying to understand this. We tore our garage down, we took a concrete slab out, we put a footing in,
So it's garage slab.
so there's no footing on the garage.
I don't believe so. I want to say 600 square feet is when the full foundation would be required. I don't believe this one met that requirement. But I may have to verify. But I believe it's just a garage slab, not a full foundation.
But with having a second floor on there?
It's the second floor requirement, and I apologize, my building code compliance is not something that I'm very strong with, but my understanding is that if it does in fact have a second story, that's when our building department requires drawings that are prepared by a licensed architect, just to make sure that the structure itself is going to be able to support itself. Obviously, that's something that the calculations come in. In terms of the full foundation under the structure, it's based on the size, the total size of the garage, and that's where the 600 square feet total area comes in.
But so as of right now, there is no foundation, or it's just a slab?
I believe so. I think I would have to double check.
Didn't we inspect the slab?
24, yeah, I believe we are under 600 square feet, so there is no full foundation.
So it was just a slab, we went out and inspected the slab and?
That is correct.
All right.
Any other questions for Ms. Bocheja? Okay, at this point, I'd like to invite the applicant, if the applicant is here tonight, to make some remarks in support of your request. You can just step up to the podium, please.
Please raise your right hand, state your name and address.
My name is Fidan Balchiev. I live in Chicago, 5305 North Washington.
Do you,
I represent the property owner. She's overseas. I'm her cousin.
okay, do
I
you
haven't-
swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Would you spell your last name, please?
B as a boy, A as a apple, L as a Larry, D as a David, J as a Jacob, I, E as Edward, V as a Victor.
Thank you.
Would you like to make some
I do have a
statements?
letter from the property owner.
Okay,
I can read it, and if you guys have any questions, I can
yeah, go ahead.
answer it. Dear committee, we have started to build the garage at 569 Gilbert Drive in Wooddale with realization that we are not professionals and we decide to hire professional contractors that will work with the city of Wooddale. We built a bigger garage to suit our growing household, and in the process, we obtained permits for concrete slab and a driveway. Unfortunately, the concrete contractor made a mistake and put the concrete slab 6 inches close to the property line. The requirement to build are 6 feet from the property line, but the concrete slab was built as 5 feet 6 inches in the front of the slab and 5 feet 8 inches in the back of the slab. The project was inspected twice and this mistake was not noticed. The slab and the driveway were approved and we decided to start building the garage. When we proceed to obtain a plat of survey, this mistake was discovered and we couldn't continue obtaining the permits. We apologize for the situation we created and we're seeking to have a reasonable solution based on your decisions. Thank you.
Okay. All right, are there any questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Okay, is there any member of the public that would like to make a comment or remark on this particular case? All right, so again, we're going to be closing the public hearing, but if you have any questions for staff or for the representative of the applicant, now's the time to ask those questions. Any further questions?
Yeah, I have one. I can ask it to go, sure, no.
Yes.
When they came in to get this permit, did they have a signed contract from a concrete guy?
So the process to get the initial permit issued was a bit lengthy because we had multiple changes. But ultimately, yes, there was a contractor involved for the concrete.
And was there a contractor for the garage, or you didn't get that far because you weren't doing the permit?
Exactly. We just received that permit. It actually was a couple months ago, but we've been working with the applicant to apply for the variance, so that's why we have not reviewed the permit application for the garage itself. But there was a concrete contractor for the slab and the driveway.
And the concrete guy should be insured for this, correct? If needed?
I honestly,
I believe we bonded, we asked for a cash bond, or not a cash bond, we have a security bond, right?
So it really depends. Currently, the master fee schedule states that if we are adding more than, and I apologize, it's either 400 or 500 square feet of new impervious surface, that's when the construction management bond is required. My understanding of the construction management bond is mainly if there's destruction to the public right-of-way, when the heavy equipment is being brought to site, that's where that money would typically be used. I don't know how that relates to, let's say, insurance of the actual job itself. I want to say those are probably two separate things.
I guess my question would be, is what do we do so this never happens again?
Yeah. That's an excellent question. Our procedure has been sort of similar in a way. We require those spot surveys to be submitted before the permit is closed out. Obviously, we always emphasize with everyone that the work or construction may not start before a permit is issued. I think that was one of the big problems in this situation, that we never really had the reason, but at the same time, based on my conversations with the petitioners, they stated that they were not aware that there wasn't a permit for the garage. So there was some miscommunication between the contractor and the property owner.
But the contractor had to know there was no permit. Even if I can understand a homeowner might not know, but a contractor should know.
It really depends, and unfortunately, I don't have the permit in front of me. I want to say the permit applicants were the property owners, which sometimes happens. You could be the property owner and you apply for the permit itself, so you are the main contact person, and then you just list your contractor on there, as opposed the contractor applying for the permit and them being responsible for the entire permit. I want to say in this case it was the property owners, but I may be wrong. That's just my recollection.
Am I correct that I hear from him that there was 2 inspections?
That is correct. We had inspections for the pre-pour and the slab itself, and also there were multiple inspections for the permeable pavers. But as was noted, usually when our inspectors go out, they look for the specific things. So let's say for the base, we need to check the depth and whether the materials are correct. Then we've got the final inspection to make sure the restoration is there. So that's why we heavily rely on those spot surveys, because they are prepared by licensed land surveyors. They've got the equipment, they've got the knowledge to actually identify the property lines on site. The appearance, if you were to go to this site, the appearance is that it looks like it meets the 5 feet. But it wasn't until the spot survey was submitted, which is required for the permit, when the discrepancy was discovered. So that's, as part of the permit closeout, we look at the final inspections to make sure that everything is constructed correctly, but the setbacks are verified via the spot survey.
So they actually, when they looked at it, they weren't really looking at measurements?
At the time, exactly, because we had the spot survey requirement, so everyone knew that this is something that needed to be submitted.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, so we are now going to close the public hearing portion of this case. We're going to proceed to deliberations. And if I could direct you to page 6 of the staff memo. Again, staff has submitted a recommended motion. I will read the motion, and just as in the other case, we're going through this exercise to get the motion on the floor for discussion. So the recommended motion is, based on the submitted petition and testimony presented, the proposed zoning variation is consistent with the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, and therefore I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of fact included within the staff memo dated June 21st, 2021, as the findings of the Community Development Commission, and recommend to the City Council approval of the zoning variation to allow reduction of the side setback for the detached garage from 5 feet to 4 feet 8 inches in case number VAR 2021-02. That's the motion. Anyone can say so moved.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and so now the motion is on the floor for discussion.
I have a question on that motion.
Yes.
Is that 4.8 feet or is that 4.67?
We have here, Gosha, 4 feet 8 inches.
So ultimately, because it says 0.67, so ultimately, if we convert it to inches, that's where we got the 8
Very
inch.
good. Just want to make sure we're consistent.
Okay. Anybody have any comments, viewpoints on this particular request? No? Okay, then we'll proceed to roll call.
Mr. Babowis,
No.
Mr. Damasco,
Yes.
Mr. Ochoa,
Yes.
Mr. Shemanek,
Yes.
Ms. Zatko,
No.
and Mr. Woods.
No. So the motion does not carry. So the recommendation of the CDC will be a recommended denial of this particular request. Okay, let's move along to our last public hearing of the night. It is SPU 2021-0002. This is a request made by Legacy Tile Flooring Distributors, and Legacy Tile Flooring is requesting a special use and a major site plan review to allow operation of a flooring store. The subject property is located at 1450 North Wooddale Road. Mr. William D. Lockwood is the owner of the parcel. Gosha, can you give us some background on this request and let us know about notice?
Would you raise your right hand, state your name and address, please?
Gosha Pocheja, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you. As noted earlier, the public hearing notice was published in Daily Herald on June 4th, 2001. We notified property owners within 300 feet of the subject property with a mailing that was sent out, and we also placed a sign at the subject property. Here is a locational map of the subject property. We are at 1450 North Wooddale. We're at the very north end of the city, just a little bit south of Devon Avenue. The subject property is essentially consists of a parking lot and an existing commercial brick structure. This is a look at the zoning map. The subject property is zoned C2 General Commercial. It is surrounded by RG General Residential. If you're familiar with the area, there's a PUD development of townhomes in that area. However, I will note that there is an existing evergreen sort of a buffer between the actual residential buildings and this commercial structure itself. And also of note is that to the south and east, the properties are really surrounded by our industrial district. This is the photograph of the site. The building right now is vacant and has been vacant for at least a few years. It used to be occupied by Southland Flooring Supplies. The site is a little bit over 20 square feet. As I mentioned, it's improved with the one-story brick commercial building, and there are 11 parking spaces on site with one accessible parking space. And it's not a really good photograph, but essentially this is, I guess, there's some evergreens and some deciduous trees right on the site, and the residential property are behind there. And here is where we have our existing light industrial zoned buildings. In terms of the compliance with the UDO, as I mentioned before, the subject property is zoned C2 general commercial. Our code says that a special use is required for any use such as carpet, rug, and linoleum store. So our code is kind of very specific to say this is a permitted use, however, it requires the special use approval. So essentially a public hearing is required, followed by the final decision or approval or denial by the city council. I will also wanted to note that back in 1998, a similar special use was approved for the prior operator, and the special use was specific for flooring supply store, showroom, and related office and warehouse facility. There was an ordinance that was passed at the time. Because there was a special use already granted, essentially what the request here is a reestablishment of a use that is very similar that was there before. However, because there was a break, the property was vacant for a few years, that prior special use expired. So that's why the new business that wants to move in there is required to go through this process again under the current code regulations. Oops, sorry. Apologize, I dropped my presentation. In terms of the lot development standards, there aren't any physical changes that are being proposed. The site and the building itself may just undergo some cosmetic changes maybe on the interior, but there really isn't anything meant to really change. The building type 9 typologies apply. I believe the building itself doesn't meet the front setback, the rear setback, and the separation between residential by a few feet as it's outlined in the staff memo. However, as noted again, no physical changes are really being proposed, and the use is not really being, there's no change in use essentially. Once again, we are reestablishment, a use that was approved there and really has been in existence for almost 2 decades. In terms of compliance with the comprehensive plan, I did want to note this a little bit in more detail. So the existing land use map in our comprehensive plan designates this area as retail commercial. And the proposed use really fits that well because it's made for a range of retail, restaurant, personal services, and so on. However, if we look at the future land use map in our comprehensive plan, that area is noted as industrial and business park. And I actually included little maps that are also in the staff memo. So ultimately we see the current land use, which is the commercial over here, retail commercial, and the future actually has it in purple, which is industrial business park. The assumption could be made is that this property was changed to industrial with the potential that maybe there was some sort of a redevelopment, and because of the existing industrial really surrounding the property, that was just made more consistent with the surrounding area. However, taking into consideration that we have an existing residential development that is fairly new and it's already in existence, keeping the site as retail commercial is actually more fitting for this subject property because it's going to be less intensive than having a industrial designated area or parcel directly adjacent to a residential. In terms of public comments, we really received only one call, and it was just really for a clarification of the proposed use. Sometimes people just see a public notice and they just want to know a little bit more about it, but no objections or specific comments were submitted up to the date of today, actually. And in terms of the recommendation, staff does believe that the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan and with the UDO, and it meets the standards for the special use and site plan review, as it was noted in the staff memo. Therefore, we recommend that the CDC recommend approval of the request for a special use at 1450 North Wooddale. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Bocheha?
Yes. Is there a sprinkler system in that building?
Unfortunately, I do not know. I'm not sure. But my limited knowledge is that if there isn't one right now, it typically would not be required unless there's a physical expansion of the building or an addition. But once again, building codes are not my forte, so I'm not quite sure that's something that we may have to verify.
And Commissioner Woods, that would be a good question for the applicant, too.
Okay.
Yeah. Any more questions for Ms. Bocheha? Okay, if the applicant is here tonight, I'd like to take the podium.
And would each of you, pardon me, raise your right hand and individually state your name and address?
Lindsay Sanchez, 3054 Long Common Parkway, Elgin, Illinois.
Scott Carlson, 1273 Boxwood Drive, Crystal Lake, Illinois.
Keith Carlson, 721 Parr Drive in Algonquin, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
So I just put together a short PowerPoint just to kind of introduce you guys to who our client is. I am counsel for Legacy Tile Flooring Distributors, Inc., and we just wanted to give you guys an idea of who our client is, what they intend to do with the building, and what we're all about. So, thanks, Gosha. So Legacy Tile is a newer company. They just set up in April of this year. However, both Scott and Keith and their sister Christy have over 20 years of experience in the flooring business. So they worked for prior companies and they've decided to go off on their own. So they have significant experience in the industry. Legacy Tile is going to operate a tile and vinyl flooring business. So the way that they're going to operate is they have products that are going to be ceramic, mosaic, porcelain tiles, and then luxury vinyl tile. The business operation is going to be set up in different types of end users. So number one would be the contractors themselves. So the contractors will purchase product from our client and use it at their job sites. Other businesses who would then resell the product would purchase it from our client. And then also limited end retail users as well. So we have a variety of different types of customers that we anticipate would be purchasing product from us. And just a little bit about the company itself. Initially, we anticipate that there would be 7 employees in total. 3 of them would be here present with me today. We would anticipate about 4 to 5 employees will be in the building at any given time. Annual revenue, at least right now, we anticipate that it'll be roughly around $3 million. We anticipate approximately 15% of that would be business that would generate some kind of tax revenue for the city of Wooddale. And one of the big things that we wanted to point out is, delivery trucks. We do have, and as you can kind of see from that picture that Gosha had put up, there is a delivery truck area there. So we do anticipate a few delivery trucks to come per day. Size and frequency of those trucks would vary. Some of them are going to be larger trucks, some will be smaller. However, we do have some ability to control the hours that those trucks will be coming to our property. Obviously, if it's a UPS or FedEx truck, we can't always control that, but from our distributors, we'll be able to work with them to ease concerns about deliveries coming too early in the morning, too late at night, things like that. So as you know, the property was built in, I believe I actually said early to mid-1990s. It might have been closer to the later 1990s. It was occupied by Southland Flooring for almost 20 years. I believe actually its successor, E.J. Welch, might have operated out of there for a little bit. But they essentially have a similar product line to what my client is proposing to use this property for. And it's been used for no other properties other than a flooring store to our knowledge. So we have the property address. It's currently zoned C2 General Commercial. You all know this from Gosha's report. We are asking to be able to operate under the carpet, rug, and linoleum store special use that is permitted under the C2 General Commercial District. And again, we're trying to just reestablish that use that had been on that property for approximately 20 years. This is just an update, and I know, Gosha, we had submitted a prior survey. We did just obtain a more recent survey, which I had sent to Gosha, I believe, last week. So this is the most recent survey for the property, and again, we do not anticipate making any changes to the footprint of the building. We don't anticipate making any changes to the layout of the parking lot or anything. Any changes that we would be making would be more cosmetic just inside the building. And these are the building plans just to give you a layout of the property. The larger area in the back is the warehouse area. We anticipate that we will use that for warehousing and storage of products. The two areas that are towards the, thanks Scotia, is going to be an office area and then a showroom area. At this time, the showroom will be the area that will be doing a lot of cosmetic work. So we'll be upgrading just the way that the showroom presents itself. The area off to the top of the building itself, that is where our delivery trucks will come in. So that's basically open space for our delivery trucks. And then there's a mezzanine level that currently right now we anticipate to use for kind of overflow storage, but no offices up there or anything like that. So we proposed, we're not going to be making any modifications, like I said, to the footprint or the floor plan of the way that the building is set up. One of the things that we actually really like about the building is that it's set up perfectly for the type of business that my client would like to operate there. Anything that we would be doing would be, electrical upgrades, HVAC systems. Warehouse would be used to store products, and then the mezzanine level would be overflow storage. So we're seeking approval of a special use to operate a flooring store, and uses ancillary there too. Again, the office space that we would be using. Under the special use of a carpet, rug, and linoleum stores, which is permitted as a special use in the C2 General Commercial District. Thank you.
Any questions for the presenter?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you do or do not plan on carrying carpet?
Yes, we will carry, if allowed, some carpet, but it will be more commercial carpet tiles, but generally our focus will be on vinyl tile as well as porcelains and ceramics.
One other thing.
Yep.
Do we have a sprinkler system in that building?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Maybe one more.
Go ahead.
Your delivery trucks, are you going to ever have 18-wheelers in there?
We will not own an 18-wheeler, but we will have deliveries that will be made to our site, but we will not have one. We'll have a smaller delivery vehicle, like a van.
Like she was saying, you're gonna try to go in the better times. I know that that's a school bus route for picking up kids in that division there. So you're gonna have it early in the morning, later in the afternoon. So whatever we could work out would be great for the schools.
Absolutely.
Okay.
May I?
Any other questions?
Business card for each of you. Business card, please.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Okay, is there any member of the public here that would like to make a comment? Yes, sir, can you please approach the podium?
And would you raise your right hand, state your name and address, please?
My name is Arthur Gallegos. I live at 1198 Maple Lane, Elk Grove Village.
Would you spell your last name, please?
Gallegos.
E-G-O-S?
Correct.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so
Yes, I
help you
do.
God?
Yes, I do. So I'm the owner of 1457 Unit 4, Blackhawk Court, which is right next to where these trucks pull in. It's on the map there, where they're, right in where there's a dot where the trucks we pull in. So I moved in November of 2006. I bought the unit. I just moved out April 11th. I have a tenant in there now. So my question is, when we were there, Southland Flooring had trucks coming overnight, spending the night there. I guess they'd come in late and wait till the store opened up. So they'd be idling. And I would call the police on occasions, and they came in, either told them to turn the trucks off or they had to leave. So my question is if we're gonna have that same issue with you guys.
No, we will not. We will not have that issue at all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other member of the public that would like to make a remark? Okay, any further questions? All right, so just a friendly reminder, I'm going to close the public hearing portion, so this is your last chance for any questions. Great, okay, so I'm closing the public hearing portion of the public hearing, and we're going into the deliberation portion. On page 8 of the staff memo, there is a recommended motion. I'll read the recommended motion, and a member can say so moved. The recommended motion is based on the submitted petition and the testimony presented. The proposed special use and major site plan review meets the standards of approval and is consistent with the UDO and comprehensive plan. And therefore I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of fact included within the staff memo dated June 21, 2021 as the findings of the Community Development Commission, and recommend to the City Council approval of the special use request to operate a flooring store at 1450 North Wooddale Road in case number SPU 2021-0002.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'm
and a-
sorry, who was the second?
Mr. Shmanek.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second, and the motion's on the floor for discussion. Does anybody have any thoughts or viewpoints on this request?
Can we add that as a condition to satisfy the residential concern of overnight trucks idling in the parking lot?
Does anybody else have any thoughts on that
I
particular?
agree with that. If they say they're gonna do it, we might as well put it in there so they'll do it.
I agree also.
Are you going to define the times that are overnight then?
I think stand 7 p.m.
I'm just throwing that out there as a business question.
That's a
I
great
wanna be-
question.
I
So
wanna be,
maybe
you
we
know-
should ask the applicant what would be their standard operating day.
You want to stay here?
You can go up to the podium. So what you're hearing in the deliberations is potential condition put on the
Sure.
request. And
Absolutely.
the condition of the operation of the trucks. Do you have any thoughts on
Our plan is to operate from 7:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. We will not accept deliveries in the evening hours, and we can schedule deliveries as well, saying you have to be in between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. So we can set those conditions ahead of time.
And trucks will not be able to stay overnight.
Correct, absolutely not.
So the delivery time's 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., is that what you mentioned?
We can set times that are recommended by the board or whatever we need.
But would you be okay with 8 a.m. to 3 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I would give them a little bit later than that. You're always gonna have a truck driver a little
Yeah,
late
a
and
little
stuff
bit
like
earlier,
that. I
too.
understand you don't wanna have them late night, that's understandable. But I think I'd give them at least to like 6.
Well, let's make it easy. Send them a 7.
Yeah, the construction time.
7 to 7.
Yes,
fine.
that
good
would
with
be
me.
great.
I mean, just in case they need to have a container or something.
What is that now?
7 to 7.
7 to 7. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So what we'll do is, the maker of the motion was Commissioner Zatsko. So what you will do is you will amend the motion to, and I'm going to give you a suggested amendment, and you can just say so amended. So the suggested amendment is amending your motion to include the condition of a delivery time of product between the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you can just say so amended.
So amended.
Okay. And then
Second.
we have a motion and a second on the amended motion.
Okay.
Any discussion
Yes.
on this?
Oh,
Yes.
no, I got something else.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Something that we didn't cover, and I know we covered it last time around with this building, but we want to make sure that the dumpster is either going to be in the building or in an enclosure. And I think they went within the building because they couldn't give up a parking spot, if I remember. I know you weren't here at that time, but, or maybe you were.
My understanding, Gosha, correct me if I'm wrong, but dumpster enclosures are required?
That is correct.
They're required by code.
All right.
A roll
Okay.
call?
Is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Bebowis?
Yes.
Mr. Damasco?
Yes.
Mr. Ochoa?
Yes.
Mr. Shemanek?
Yes.
Ms. Zatko?
Yes.
And Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Very good. And so that item will also proceed to the cities, with they call it the PZB committee. And Gosha can follow up with you on that. Okay, so that concludes our public hearings for the night. We'll move on to the staff liaison report.
We actually don't have anything to report. No, I just wanted to know, staff will be working on revisions to the Unified Development Ordinance. That's something that's been ongoing, so we anticipate that changes will be presented in the next few months. So that's really taking the priority right now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Having no other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Unit
We
4.
have a motion and second. All in favor?
Thank you.
You better tell her.
All opposed?
Better tell her.